Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the Systems and Sustainability Echo. My name is Shreya Prasanna, and I will be facilitating today's session. These sessions are enabled for live closed captioning. If you would like to view closed captioning, please navigate to the bottom of this Zoom window and select the Show Captions option. We are recording these sessions for later distribution through the BWell YouTube channel. Any information you put in the chat will not be shared in the recording. As always, please stay muted unless you're speaking, and we do encourage you to speak. If you joined by computer, your mute button is at the bottom left of your Zoom controls. If you're on the phone, just press *6. We encourage everyone to join by video for the discussion portion of our session. That said, regardless of how you've shown up today, we are happy you're here to learn alongside us. Because there are a lot of us here, we ask you to keep your comments brief to allow space for others to speak up. You can also use the chat feature to raise comments or questions. Please note that no protected health information is allowed in either the chat or the discussion, and that includes names, emails, addresses, or anything that can easily identify an individual. To help us with attendance, please enter your name, email, and affiliation into the chat. To all the BWell Texas providers, please make sure that you identify yourselves during the session, or if you're joining via phone, please email your phone number and name to bwelltx@utisca.edu. Towards the end of the session, the BWell Texas team will be sending out a link to an evaluation survey. Please fill it out to be entered into a raffle for a $30 Walmart gift card. Our didactic today is about improving program visibility through communication and marketing, and will be presented by Andrea Rochat. After that, we will have some announcements from BWell, and then hear a systems case from our learning community. As always, I encourage you all to share your questions, feedback, and insight for today's conversation. Remember, we're all teachers and all learners in this space. And with that, we will do some introductions. Matt.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Good to have you with us. My name is Matt Rochat, and my background's in clinical social work, agency administration, governmental planning. Now I work full-time as a consultant in the areas of quality improvement, process improvement. I do a lot of implementation work for evidence-based practices, supporting systems and organizations to improve their service delivery. So great to be with you all.
Thank you so much. Leslie.
Greetings, everybody. I'm Leslie Manson. I'm a clinical psychologist and also a clinical associate professor and a consultant for integrated care. My background is in clinical and management, and it's also within primary care, substance use services, peer services, and behavioral health. And I'm really looking forward to today's didactics and our case reviews today. So welcome, everybody.
Thank you so much for joining us. Adrienne Lindsay.
Hi, everyone. Adrienne Lindsay, Director for the Center for Substance Use Training and Telementoring at BWell Texas. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Andrea Rochat.
Hi, everyone. I'm Andrea Rochat. I'm the Director of Healthcare Communications here at the BWell Institute for Substance Use and Related Disorders based at UTL San Antonio. Really excited to be back in this space.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Tony Sutton.
Good afternoon, everyone. Tony Sutton, Director of Behavioral Health Services at AIDS Foundation Chicago. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Andrea Hebler.
Hello, everyone. My name is Andrea Havler, and I am a program coordinator here at the Center for Substance Use Training and Telementoring, a division of the BWell Institute. Thank you. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you. And with that, we'll get started. Andrea, you can take it away whenever you're ready.
All right. Thank you so much. I will say it's been a very long time since I've been on a Zoom. And I used to be kind of an expert at how to do this. So bear with if I have some issues. You all can see this, right? Okay, good. And I should also say, I did used to be part of this Echo and facilitate. And if you see me sort of smiling, I don't want you to think I'm very distracted. I'm just seeing names of people that I haven't had a chance to like connect with or see in about a year's time. And it's bringing me such joy to come back to this space. So if I look a little goofy, that's why. But anyway, I'm very, very excited for the opportunity to come back to this space and talk about ways we can improve program visibility using a couple of strategies from the fields of marketing and communications. Nothing to disclose on my behalf or the other planners. And this is just our usual disclosure slide. Some things I want to talk about today and share with you all are the importance of communication and marketing for this space, for increasing program visibility and service referrals, and also describe some strategies we can use for tailoring communications and marketing plans to specific and identified audiences. And I also want to spend some time talking about tools and really metrics for assessing the effectiveness of communication and marketing efforts. I am intending for this to be kind of a primer, like a 10,000-foot view of these very involved fields. And so please throw your questions at me because I don't think I'll be going into a whole lot of detail during this, but I'd love to answer some more questions. I do also want to call out before I go any further. Part of my team is here too. I believe Marcia Gooden, if you can just sort of wave to the camera. Marcia oversees all of our web experience and digital experiences. And she is here. She's forgotten more about social media than I will probably ever know in my lifetime. And so I asked her to come today in case we have some specific questions in that space. And if he has availability, my other colleague, Carlos Belonga, who oversees our communications and marketing efforts, will also join for the same reason. Okay, so let's move forward a little bit. So just some context before we get going. What is marketing? What is communication? So both of these fields are at their core about sharing and delivering information, but their goals and consequently the strategies used therein are a bit different. So market is about sales, and for that reason is often customer centric or considered customer centric. Who's your customer? What are you selling? Even if that thing you're selling is free, but what are you selling and how can you align that product or that service with the needs of a customer? So in that way, it's a bit more transactional in nature than communications. Now, communications, on the other hand, is more about sharing messages with an identified audience with the goal of promoting understanding, driving engagement, and potentially creating acceptance of a message. In this way, where marketing is more customer centric, communications is going to be more audience focused, and where marketing it maybe has more of a transactional feel to it, like what is a transaction, what is a good or service being sold. Communications has a little bit more of a relational focus. So what are the relationships being built here? How do we bridge understanding in this space? And so you can see how these two spaces have quite a bit of overlap, and we can gain a lot from leveraging strategies of both. They are not competing fields. So with marketing, we can learn tactics for impactful delivery, and communications, we can learn tactics for compelling engagement. And the two of those things combined can not only improve program visibility and drive up some of those things that matter, like referrals, but can also support positive relationships in your local community. I do want to talk a little bit about sort of some unique challenges, I think, especially in the space of healthcare delivery, and particularly in a field like substance use treatment and recovery. There are some unique challenges for creating messages and sharing them. And just briefly, this can include ethical considerations. So this is, oftentimes an identified audience or a potential client would be somebody who's living with a substance use disorder, or their family or the community around there. And it's important to keep in mind these can be vulnerable or under-resourced populations. And so there are ethical considerations to take into account when creating messaging for those kinds of audiences. Stigma, I'm sure that's spoken about a lot in this echo and others from CSTAT, but on all sides, that can be a challenging barrier to open and sort of fruitful conversation, as well as a well-earned lack of trust between the community and the healthcare system that's intended to serve it, or finding a way to get the message to the person when they're ready. So, and that can be just a moment of time, and so you have to be really ready to get to that person where they are when they need that message. Operating within a complex and fragmented care system, that's not a challenge for messaging or communications. That's just a challenge for access in general, but it is something that our messaging should take into account. And of course, I'm sure this is not strange idea to many of you here. It can be hard to develop messaging campaigns and communication campaigns if you have limited staffing, if you have limited resources. And I think that's pretty typical in this space. And then there are also those acts, besides the fragmented care system I mentioned before, there are also just basic access challenges that a communications campaign, a marketing campaign might not be able to solve, like things like transportation issues. So just to work in this space, knowing that there are some challenges, but it is worthwhile to consider marketing and communication strategies that can improve and elevate your organization. Before we jump in, I just want to zoom out a little bit and discuss a framework for approaching this kind of effort. So this framework is adapted from kind of a benchmark book called Making Health Communication Programs Work from the National Cancer Institute. The book is freely available. I link it in my references page or references slide at the end of here. And it's a really helpful guidebook. I encourage everybody to take a look at, but it offers a very simple structure to begin working from. And now this is really about health communications campaigns, but I think we can zoom out and use this to think about marketing and communications plans as a whole. So just be thinking about this cyclical process during this entire presentation. Beginning with planning, considering your audiences, your resources, your budget, potential partners that can help to leverage your messaging or might also benefit from your messaging, and of course, your goals. And then we move on to, once we've done a lot of planning, we move on to the development and the building of messages that are informed by that planning and that research. And that can involve also building those messages, creating those assets to share, and then importantly, pre-testing, figuring out some way of kind of vetting your content before you send it out into the world. And then that leads us to sending it out into the world, implementation, where you monitor what you've shared, you adjust it as needed, you continue building those relationships. And again, this is not a like one-stop shop. Communications, marketing, messaging is all about a long-term relationship. And then that finally leads to that last step in this cycle, but the first step of the next cycle, which is assessing. So evaluate your work. What worked, what didn't? How can you change your approach moving forward? Just want to reiterate before I go on, this is a continuous cycle. So what you learn through assessment and evaluation can and should inform the next step of your planning phase. Okay, so let's talk about goal setting, and maybe before that, let's talk about managing expectations. I think there might be a sense that a goal is to go viral or to have a single message that is so big and so consuming that it kind of flips a light switch and suddenly it fixes everything and everything's great. Everybody knows about you and everybody comes to your organization. And that would be great. And congratulations if it happens for you. And I would love to have that person come back and give a case example at this Echo. But just in case it doesn't work that way, I would encourage you all to think long term and view your marketing and communications efforts as just one more arm of how your practice engages with and partners with the community and its stakeholders, the clients you might serve, their families, your funders, your immediate community, local sources of referral, and so on. So really think long term, which gets you away from setting goals that are unrealistic and also reminds you that so much of this is just being reliably present for your community. So that said, it's important to set goals for your messaging alternatives. And I'm sure many people are familiar with the concept of SMART goals. But the idea is make and set goals that are specific to your audience, to what you're trying to achieve. Make them measurable goals using data sources you have access to. And data can be qualitative. It can be just sort of feedback that you're getting from people, but there are also quantitative data sources that should be taken into account as well. Make your goals achievable. Again, don't aim for I don't know, a 300% change and referral numbers coming in. Make it something that's realistic based on the resources, based on your timeline, all of that. Make it relevant to your organization and your team's goals, values, and priorities. I think the idea here is that the accomplishment of this goal should be relatively frictionless within your organization. It should only support and amplify what your organization already seeks to do. If we choose things that are relevant, we're going to get much broader buy-in from our own organization as well as the people we serve. And then, of course, time bound. Give yourself a deadline, stick to that deadline, and know that you can always repeat, rinse, wash, and repeat. I think I said that in the wrong order, but exactly that. All this said, I want to reiterate a point I heard in a recent webinar that CSTAT hosted with Dr. Mike Mackert at UT Austin. He's the director of School of Health Communications up there. Dr. Mackert referenced a very well-known article from the Stanford Social Innovation Review, and I felt it was a good enough point, an important enough point to warrant my most obnoxious slide transition. So I will share that with you here. I did a lot of slide transitions, but the bouncy one felt the best. The idea is stop raising awareness already. Not that that's not a good thing, but the idea being that awareness, according to a large body of evidence, actually does very little to produce behavior change or make much impact at all. And I say this because a lot of the go-to metrics for gauging success of marketing and communications campaigns are exactly that, the sort of low-hanging fruit are your impressions, your visibility, how much awareness have you raised. It's a helpful watermark, and it's great to see if your content is being seen by more and more people. But what this article really pushes us to do is to anchor that data or seek out additional data that really shows if your messaging is having the impact, the behavior change that you intended to. That webinar, I should mention, is terrific. I don't think it's online yet from CSTEP, but it's worth checking out their website, or if you're part of their listserv, you'll be notified of it. Dr. Mackert's webinar that he talks about sort of communication strategies in this space. Okay, so let's aim beyond just raising awareness. This is pretty straightforward in the planning stage, but it's important to consider your resources and think creatively about your resources. This includes staffing or existing sites, platforms. Maybe your practice already has a Facebook page. It's just it has to be dusted off a little bit. Or if there's any money that can support this. It doesn't have to be a lot. It doesn't have to be a lot to be impactful and be true to what your organization's message is that you're trying to convey. And also I think creatively about your staffing, like those things that you might not know. The person who has a secret penchant for a little bit of graphic design, or somebody who's got the social media savviness that you could maybe tap into for some of these kinds of efforts. I think we tend to think, oh, marketing and communications campaign, I need to just invest a big portion of money in it. But a lot of times we already have that capacity in the current team we have. Think also in your planning stage about your partners, and think creatively about who is in your community who might help amplify this message. It may not even need to be a local substance use or recovery services oriented space. It could be a local community organization that aims to share resources with the neighboring community, or a local store that's demonstrated a kind of unique commitment to its neighborhood or its locality. But perhaps most important in all of this is to ask and plan and think about who is your intended audience. And it's okay to have multiple audiences, but those should have different strategies for addressing them. And here's where a lot of the comms comes in. What does your audience care about? What are their priorities? And how are you listening to them? And if you don't have a good sense of how you're listening to them, think about some ways, some strategies where you can listen to what your audience's priorities are, what their challenges are. How are they, or where are they getting information? Because knowing all of that knows how to position yourself and where to position your messaging to be impactful. Let's talk about audience a little bit more. If there's one point I kind of want you to take away from today, it's maybe this: there's no such thing as the general public, and that's a homogenous term for a very heterogeneous group. There is no such thing as a general public, and I think a lot of times we tend to think I'm going to create this communications for everybody's benefit. The more narrow and specific we can be about an audience, who our audience might be, the more effective our messaging will be. And this is based on data. This is based on a lot of research in the comms and marketing space. A helpful exercise is to create an avatar of the kind of quintessential person with whom you're trying to connect. This doesn't mean you're only sending a message to this singular person. That would be very targeted. But this thought exercise encourages you to understand your audience as individuals and understand them through and through. And that can help you craft really compelling specific messages for them. So do this exercise, create an avatar of who is the like typical person I might want to engage with this messaging. What's their age? What's their occupation? Where are they? And then go a little deeper than that. What are their motivations? What are their wants? What are their sources of information? What are their challenges? Define your audience narrowly, and your content will be compelling because of that. Returning to what I said earlier, where your audience is getting information from is a really important point. And this is just a sample of some of the options like social media, email marketing, digital advertising, maybe in media, local news affiliates. Maybe you already have your website presence and that's where people are getting certain information, or it even could come from in person, just people walking into the clinic or presentations you may have done, that kind of thing. The Pew Foundation has this helpful tool that shows top social platforms for a range of audience types. Yeah, I've linked it in my references, but also put the link here below too. One thing, and you can sort it and categorize it by sort of different demographics, so like rurality and age and all sorts of different things. It's a really fun tool to play around with. But one thing is that to note is that Facebook and YouTube are kind of kings pretty much across all categories. That changes a little bit in the younger audiences. YouTube, I will note that surprises people, but keep in mind, YouTube is something like the second largest search engine just after Google. A lot of people are on YouTube, and a lot of people don't think about YouTube as a space where they can be sharing their messaging. But yeah, if you're thinking about socials and you're intimidated by like starting a suite of social media communications, maybe just start with the one that seems most used in your location by your target, your identified audience. Okay, so you're developing messages, you're thinking about where those messages should go. Let's talk about some technologies you can use. And there are more than this. I just wanted to kind of offer a smattering. For designing and content and creating just simple graphics, you have some options. Canva is kind of one of the really big ones in this space, but Adobe Creative Cloud has a huge suite of offerings. And Microsoft Designer, I don't know a lot about this one, except that it's kind of Microsoft's answer to Canva. I was poking around in there, and it does look pretty like user friendly and easy to kind of get things done. Canva kind of built their entire organization off of that kind of thing, just being easy to template out and make something that looks polished and not like you threw it together in Microsoft Paint. If you are thinking about starting, or you already have a bunch of social media and you find that it's just overwhelming to post on LinkedIn, then move over to Facebook and then move over to X, and you've forgotten your logins to all of these and all of that nonsense, there are platforms that help you to plan and manage your social media content so you can effectively make one post that goes across all of your socials. And there are a few options here. A lot of these have either free versions that don't have all the bells and whistles, or they have free trial periods so you can kind of figure out if it works for your needs. Email marketing is a great way to just start gathering a listserv and start sending out relevant messages, not spamming people, but sending out timely messages to a growing audience. There are a few options as well. Search engine optimization is not a technology. I don't know why I put it as a bullet under here, but search engine optimization is an important thing to be considering. This is basically helping people making your website easier to find and easier to use. This might surprise people. There are places that will take a lot of your money and tell you that they will help you with search engine optimization. And I'm sure they will. But I also want people to know there are a lot of things you can do with your own website to just improve a good deal, the searchability of it. And I list some of those strategies here. So before you go throwing money at somebody, maybe try some of that first. And then AI. And that's about as much as I want to say about AI, because I feel like I don't know a whole lot about what's happening in this space. But these are tools that we should not be shying away from. Said the person who's shying away from them. These are tools we shouldn't be shying away from, and we can leverage them. They can be great for content creation. They can be great for tailoring for an audience. So you can give it prompts like you could describe your organization and say, these are our organization's values. Come up with a series of 15 tweets over the course of a year that would promote getting to know more about our organization and coming for a visit. And it will give you that in a matter of seconds. You can also have it pretend to be a certain kind of audience and give kind of feedback based on messaging you have. That's one of the great ways I've seen it used, is just very quick content creation, especially if you're somebody who doesn't work as well off of a blank page and needs something to react to. And there's a lot of other ways AI can be used for like search engine optimization and all sorts of things like that. So just keep in mind, that's a growing field. Okay, so you're in the development stage still, and what do your messages look like? Always have a clear call to action. What's the thing you want your audience to do after they've engaged with your content? What is that action? And it should be very, very clear for every message you're sending out there. And try to keep it kind of singular. Don't overwhelm people with options of what they should be clicking on. Keep your messaging clear, keep it concise, align it with your brand, align your content with your brand, with your voice, with your organizational value. And you don't need to necessarily work with a branding company to create a whole branding guide and all of this stuff for your own practice. Maybe just have a conversation among your team, especially the people who are going to be creating content. Who are we? What do we value? What kind of information do we want to share? And maybe just put together a few sort of schematics of what your aesthetic should look like. What colors should you use? What fonts should you use? And just sticking to those very wide guardrails for your messaging will over time establish a very clear brand and an expected voice in your audience. You don't have to create everything from scratch. A lot of times you can defer to other experts in this field and you can share other content. So know that just having a social media presence doesn't mean you're constantly churning out new content or anything like that. There's a lot you can repurpose and lean on the credibility of other organizations in your process. And then I'll spend a little bit on anti-stigmatizing images and language. I think I'm preaching to the choir here. Let's not use stigmatizing language. And that's important. The language we use shapes our reality. And especially if you're trying to encourage engagement with your practice, with your clinic, showing compassion, showing consideration of sort of multiple pathways of recovery in your communications is going to get buy-in from that audience. This is a great guide from the Addiction Policy Forum. I encourage you to check it out, but it talks about non-stigmatizing image use. And just a few sort of quick guides to this. Don't show people who look like it's the worst day of their life. That doesn't mean everything you put out has to look like an ad for toothpaste or something with everybody super smiley and shiny, but sort of show your subject matter some compassion and some respect in the imagery you show. If you're showing somebody who's involved with the justice system, don't show people who are in handcuffs or being shoved into a police car. That can be really triggering imagery for your audience. Don't show piles of substance. I don't know how many news articles I've seen that look like the dark corner of a liquor cabinet. It's like all they showed, or just piles of medicine, or like that kind of imagery is not compelling, is stigmatizing, and can be triggering for your audience. Some really great examples and some great quotes from people with lived experience in the guide I just referenced. Okay. Still in the development stage. I promise this is the longest stage, but don't just send things out into the world. It's important to kind of pre-test, put together some focus groups. You don't have to be super formal, but figure out some ways of getting feedback from your intended audience or representatives of your intended audience before you send messages out. And this could include surveys, interviews, just running a flyer by somebody. And you want to get feedback on, is our content relevant? Is it compelling? Is it clear? Is it correct? And are there alternative ways of messaging the way we're messaging? Really, what I'd say with this and what you see with the graphic on the side, think of this as a relationship building process, not so much the transactional one. You want feedback and you want ongoing feedback from the community that your organization intends to serve. Okay. Implementing. So we've done a lot of developing. Now we are implementing. I would encourage you to think about multi-platform communications. What this means is that everybody's journey to recovery is different. Everybody takes multiple pathways, and you want to create multiple opportunities along that pathway for people to engage with your content so that your content finds them when they're ready for the change you're trying to encourage. So Think multi-platform. On social media, you can be doing organic or unpaid posts. These are just your regular posts that go out. You can also pay just a bit of money. This is not very expensive to do. To have a paid ad that you put some sort of targets on, you can target it by maybe who might see it or locality, things like that. You can also share content. You can engage with followers on social. In the email marketing space, you can begin to grow a listserv, people who want to hear about what your organization is doing. Your goal is not to spam them. Your goal is to provide valuable content and do it with regularity so they come to expect it. Just give them something that's helpful. There's also digital advertising. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on digital advertising just because I think this is where some more dollars come into play. But there are multiple platforms where you can be putting ads, pre-roll over the top, like before streaming videos and on streaming services. Display ads are the things you see on websites that people never really click on. I never really click on them, but you can do display ads, and it's a great way of getting impressions and potential clicks. And I do think display ads is one of the more cost-effective digital ad strategies. There's also opportunities to connect with your local news affiliates. If there's something happening in your community that you feel your team or your organization would have content to share, you can align with their stories, you can align with events and pitch your stories. And of course, we already talked about your website. So you've implemented and now you assess. And why do we assess? I think I'm also preaching to the choir if this is a bunch of systems folks, but we evaluate because we want to measure the success of our campaigns. We want to identify other areas of need for our community or maybe for our organization. We want to keep growing the relationships that have been built or started as a result of the messaging campaigns we put out there. We want to refine the content. We want to reshape it. And also, if you're working in a place that might not look too kindly on marketing and communications, might not think it deserves its own space, its own line in the budget, evaluation can help you to justify those resources and justify that effort to your funders, to your clinic leadership, all of that. Okay, so some common metrics. I know I'm coming up on time, so I'll go through these really quickly. Some common metrics on socials. You're looking for impressions and engagement. On digital campaigns, it's click-throughs, completions. In email marketing, you're looking at how many people are opening the emails, how they're interacting with the emails. And on a website, we can look at things like page views and engagement. If you're seeing this right now and this is the feeling you're having, I want you to just sort of take a breath and know that most platforms have straightforward and native analytics tools. So it looks like a lot, but this data is at your hands. If you have a Facebook page, Facebook will give you this information. That's quite all right. And you can learn a lot just from reflecting back on the past month's work. Also be looking for some other meaningful outcomes. How's your relationship improving? What are people saying on your Facebook page or your Google reviews? Are you seeing any of that? Are you receiving more referrals? Is there any change in knowledge, attitude, beliefs? Have you set up kind of maybe a quick study to assess that? Changes in behavior that you're starting to know, or stories, direct quotes, those are important. And if you're not already asking this, when somebody engages with your organization for the first time, start asking it. How'd you hear about us? That's really important data. So beyond that, what do? You've assessed. Well, this is the part where you share among your team, you reflect on what you've done well, you refine your content, and you keep going. It's a continuous cycle. Again, it's not about a singular transaction. It's about long-term relationships within your community. And this, my least attractive slide, is the references. I want to thank you. I'm so sorry to have gone over the way I did, but thank you so much. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Andrea. It's always a pleasure to hear you. And this was a lot of great information, and I'm sure we all learned a lot. We do have a few minutes for some questions from our learning community that you may have for Andrea.
I'll just say that I really want to see that reference list again. I tried to take a quick shot of it, but I wasn't quick enough. So you had great references through.
Well, thank you so much, Matt. And thank you again, Andrea. I will now move on to the next part of our session. Karen, if you could please share the announcements from Be Well. Thank you so much. To claim your CME credit, you need to have a registered account. You need to create an account. If you've not registered, please text your email address to 844-502-1338. And following that, please email attend10096832. And we will share this information on the chat as well. Please make sure to claim the credits by midnight tonight. Next slide, please. Do you have a case, a difficult case that you or your team have encountered? CSAT offers you the opportunity to present any challenge your organization is encountering and receive feedback from our hub of experts and broader learning community. There is no need to prepare a formal presentation. We will provide a case form to fill out to assist with your case presentation. Please email us at cstat@utisca.edu. Next slide, please. The Center for Substance Use Training and Telementoring offers technical assistance for various substance use disorder needs and topics via our team of experts. To request technical assistance, please complete an online request form and we will be pleased to help you. And we will drop this link in the chat as well. Next slide. And do join us for our next session. This will be on Thursday, August 22nd at 12 noon. I know Andrea was having some connection difficulties, but please keep the questions coming in the chat, and I'm sure she will be happy to answer. Thank you again so much, Andrea, for the wonderful presentation. And we will now move on to our case. Tony works with an organization that works with people living with HIV. Could you please tell us a bit about your role and what challenges your organization is facing currently?
Thank you so much. So again, Tony Sutton, Director of Behavioral Health at AIDS Foundation Chicago. Our agency serves individuals that are living with HIV or AIDS or other co-occurring medical issues. We primarily are under the housing umbrella for our behavioral health services. So we service individuals who are homeless, have obtained housing. Our grants are from affordable housing and other grants around the nation, but then also statewide as well. And what we do is we provide that behavioral health services to the individuals, be it in-home, in-office, or telehealth. Additionally, under that umbrella, we have harm reduction services for individuals with substance use disorders or diagnosed with substance use disorders, excuse me. Some of the challenges we're having are that we have been looking to revamp our services to provide, to increase referrals and provide services not only to individuals within housing, but also within our reentry system. And with that being said, because we are housed under housing, there has been some difficulties that we have faced as we're trying to reinforce that foundation that we've had with housing and reinforce the foundation we've had with partner agencies to remind them that this is a service provided. So a couple of things we've been struggling with is maintaining those partnership relationships due to turnover, due to just changes within all the systems. We are finding that we are sort of siloed, I guess you could say, away from some of the partnerships, even within our own agency, with them not knowing what we do or how we can provide services or even referrals, how to do that. With our team reinforcing that foundation, we have 6 staff members for both programs within that umbrella, and it's just trying to rebuild that active teamwork, rebuild some of the policies and procedures so that it is in keeping and along the lines that will promote us being able to provide services to individuals with Medicaid, because currently we do not. So we're trying to get the team active in that and get the team prepared for that. And lastly, the team has struggled with, they have struggled with wrapping their minds around the idea of adding those services. And some of the barriers that they've shared are those regarding documentation, some of that new service paperwork. As I'm sure you all know, when working with individuals, there's paperwork that has to be done: consents, releases of information, just getting approvals. And the staff has shared with me that the concern is that that would be another barrier. I already have the barrier that I have to do a mental health evaluation, which can be very comprehensive and can feel cumbersome to some clients. But then I have to then add additional paperwork for Medicaid or any other funding source that we might have, which could easily, from their reports, could cause that barrier and lead to them not re-engaging in services or just dropping out of services altogether. So to articulate all that, we're at a place where we have started to re-engage the staff, do a lot of teamwork activities, but because we are primarily out of office, we're primarily in the community, it is another barrier that we are, as many clinicians are and as many teams are, on Teams meetings, on Zoom meetings, for trainings, for just informational meetings, all that stuff. So all of that to say is I am looking to see if, you guys can provide any additional guidance, support, ideas, just so that I can continue working on what I've started with the team and then just hopefully see it grow, because the team is very passionate about the population we serve, and I know that, and I just want to provide them with all the skills. I want to provide them with all the resources so that we can be successful.
Thank you so much, Tony, for sharing and bringing these questions to us. I will open up the floor for any questions or comments or any insights you may have for Tony's situation here.
And what might be helpful as a frame, as I was listening to Tony on the heels of what Andrea was sharing with us, to sort of think about those questions. How does Tony work on maintaining her partner relationships in relation to many of the things that Andrea was talking about related to effective communications and engagement strategies? I think that's I think a really great opportunity. We've just been talking about that stuff. Do any of you use any of those things that Andrea was talking about, and/or what suggestions might you have for Tony about how to maintain those relationships, how to build those?
Andrea, sorry to put you on the spot, but did you want to jump in with some strategies?
No, I want to jump in with a question. And I can do that. Sorry, I'm feeling very like I can't be told what to do. Tony, I think I'm going back to that, one of the questions I asked, which is how are you listening? And I might have missed this in your description, but if you could revisit it, what's listening look like for your organization, and what are you hearing from audiences you'd like to engage better?
So thinking about the marketing and the communication that you had discussed in the beginning, the marketing, we are looking at that being the clients we serve and the partnering agencies that provide us with referrals. So the way we listen is we are attending some of their team meetings to identify what barriers they have, what struggles they have, because I will share. I originally, I got my feet wet in case management, and case management is hard work, thankless hard work. So a lot of the case managers have shared, we need resources. We need, what they've shared with us is we need more mental health services. We need individuals. We need to have those open availabilities to meet with therapists and counselors and psychiatrists, which is a whole nother thing with psychiatry. So that's what we have been doing to listen. And then we have also been re-engaging with some of we'll have little side meetings once a month with some of those agencies just to follow up. Hey, what's been going on? What else do you need additionally? The resources, have you been sending us referrals? Have we been following up actively just to get that feedback? But again, the referrals aren't coming. We've listened, and I ask you that maybe I'm missing something, but we listened to what they said. We tried to provide what they were requesting, but the referrals still aren't coming. And then from communications, we are looking to remind everyone that this service is available. It is at will for the clients. There is no relationship to housing or funding. It is just, we meet you where you're at, in whatever situation it is, be it working to manage substance use or looking to have a therapeutic partner on your journey. We are here for that. So we're communicating that as well. So I guess I look to you to sort of, what am I missing, I guess?
Yeah, and I don't know that I'd be the expert on what you're missing, but in hearing what you describe, a couple things come to mind, which is looking with your partners more closely at the process to see where the drop off is. Follow, like in that version of like the avatar I showed, but follow that person who's engaging with them and drops off before that point of connection with you all. And what's going on there, and how do we ease, like, just actually having that conversation and seeing what resources you could maybe, or communications you could direct at that moment of drop off that might help. I think the other bit too, I don't know that this is the end all be all solves everything. It can be, it can be really valuable to share the momentum of success stories. So if you do have moments, like if you do have clients that have been referred successfully, share that, make a really, really big deal about how awesome that was. And people, there's a lot of buy-in with that. And I don't know that you necessarily need to do a paid ad on social media or put somebody's face on a billboard or anything like that, but to really share back, this is what we're talking about when we're talking about continuity, when we're talking about referral. We want to be able to do this for more of the people. Help us understand how to make this success story the success story that everybody sees. And that can be quotes. It can be quotes from the case managers. It could be quotes from the client themselves. That sounds really valuable. This is kind of taking it in a separate way, but I see Leslie's question is just hanging there for me, and I don't want to leave it. I think it's worth thinking of internal communications as something related to, but quite different from external communications. Your audience is different and your goals are a little bit different. And so internal communications is kind of getting everybody to understand the voice and the pitch and the mission of the organization, and not just be able to repeat it like a parrot, but to put it in their terms and be able to share it back out. So some activities, I've been a part of teams before that we have an activity where everybody comes up with their elevator pitch about what the organization is and what their role is. And we pitch it to each other, and we do rapid fire. It's kind of crazy. It's insane and fun. Rapid fire pitching, 30 seconds or less. What's your organization? What do you do? Why should I care? And then you sort of build off of that. What are the key talking points? What that your team should have when they're out there in the community? What are potential questions they might get? And what are some, not canned, but what are some quick responses everybody can have on hand? And even it's fine to even document all of that, right? To write down everybody's elevator pitch, to write down some key talking points, even to work through with your own team, like, what is our organization? What's our mission? What's our voice? What are we saying? So that's a different thing than the specific problem you're facing, but I think that's a really valuable activity that a lot of groups don't do.
No, I love that. I know I just started with the organization at the end of January. So I've been trying to have my hands in a lot of different things. But one of the first team meetings we did recreate the mission because we were under the umbrella of the big organization mission. I said, but what is our mission? So we did that. But I love that idea maybe for, like you said, the internal communications for the other teams that we work with of give me your pitch about what you do. And then as I was thinking about it, I was like, then we can collaborate so then they can see us maybe in a more collaborative light versus I'm sending you a referral versus again, I like that idea of us being siloed, but just how do we work together? How are we not just separate departments, but under this organization, depending on what our missions are, just to like better communicate overall? Because I think that is something that is missing over the organization, separate from the outside partnerships, but just the partnership we have with our organization is a lot of people just don't know. They know behavioral health, they know we provide it, but that is it.
Thank you so much. Leslie, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, I wanted to just check in with the community. You all, I know, have different types of activities that you do where you link out to your community partners in various ways. I was just wondering if folks could share some of that, which might help Tony and her organization even further. So what are the ways that you reach out to your community partners? Do you have specific times that you engage with them, specific activities, specific meetings? So just wanted to open it up for the community.
I can respond to that. Hi, my name is Lisa Jensen. I'm with Alpha Home San Antonio, and I actually want to respond to Leslie's question and then go back to Andrea's point as well. So with our community partners, we have monthly engagement. It could be a Zoom meeting, it could be coffee, it could be just a meeting in person. It just really depends on the organization and how tightly they work with us. And so that is something that we do because that communication and collaboration is our bread and butter. And so that is always a priority for me as a leader. But I also want to tie this to what Andrea said, because I believe communication is internal as well as the external that you were talking about. And so I don't know if you can see this little brochure, but it has our mission, our values, our philosophy with it. And so the company has a larger one, and then there's a department specific one. Everybody gets that on the team, because if we're not on the same bus and driving in the same direction, then we've got a problem. And even in a company that's really large, you still have to know what everybody else is doing. And so what this is, it's just, again, our mission statement and our values, and it just really outlines the things that are important to us. And I think that's important as well, because one of the things that I think is important is that if you have people who are passionate, let's face it, for many nonprofits, people could go work someplace else and make a heck of a lot more money. But people do it because they have a connection. Maybe it's their personal story. Maybe it's the story of somebody that they care about. But tying that in with as many times as possible and the ways that you can do that, like just a little something that I do at a department meetings, we town halls. We have town halls 4 times a quarter where everybody in our organization gets together. One of the things that I do when I walk in, and we'll say, okay, family, listen up. And then, I'll say clap once if you know somebody that needs substance abuse services, or if that's your story. And people clap once. And then I'll say clap twice if you believe that we're about grace and second chances. Clap twice. Clap 3 times if you believe that treatment saved your life. Go crazy. And everybody will go, yay, standing up and shaking and everything. That's just a point of how, while it's not necessarily our mission and values talked about, it's implementing those things. Like for substance abuse, we believe in grace and second chances, but it's a little bitty kind of team get your attention. It's time to start the meeting. And at the same time, reinforce what's important to me, which is grace, second chances, and treatment saves lives. I didn't say those words very clearly, but when we're doing the hand clapping, not only are we doing a little bit of getting everybody's attention, but we're translating those values and commitment to our team, as well as when we meet with vendors, we show them, the little thing about our mission, our values, our philosophy. And I just feel like that has done a lot to make sure that our partners know where we're at, what's important to us, our team does, and then people who are not on our department know exactly what we stand for too. And so that's something that is easy to adopt. It's a real quick print, but you get so much, what's the word I want? Continuity and integration and staff being aligned in the same direction. So I just thought I'd share that.
Thank you so much, Lisa. We are getting close to time, but I do want to address Leslie's question here in the chat. Are there any specific strategies that the community could recommend for Tony as they grapple with the Medicaid situation? I see one here from Henry. Our program sends out monthly newsletters to partners. We also do a quarterly meeting, and this is for the communication piece. Yes. Any other suggestions to help them with the Medicaid?
I'll just chime in. A lot of organizations can actually work with your Medicaid office to reduce the amount of paperwork that you have to do with your initial filing. And then you can be granted so many weeks to complete the rest of it. So just kind of working with them related to that can be helpful. It just depends on who your immediate contact is and is working with you related to that. But there are options for that. And if anybody else has other things that they've done to really support that, please feel free to put it into the chat box to really support Tony and our community.
Thank you, Leslie. We're close to the hour, so I will request Matt to summarize. But before that, I do want to thank you, Tony, for bringing this case to us. And this was a wonderful discussion. And yes, please keep if you have any other additional strategies or comments, please keep them coming in the chat. Meanwhile, Matt, I will request you to please summarize the recommendations we have thus far.
Absolutely. Andrea Rochat, thank you for a great didactic. We learned about marketing is sales to customers. It's transactional. Communication is more sharing a message with an audience that's more relational in nature. There are some unique considerations related to substance use services around effective communications. We always want to be thinking about the audience. What do they care about? How do we listen to them? And I love this. There is no general public. I think that's a really helpful idea. Trying to think about who is the person or people who might represent the audience who we're seeking to engage with. What's our brand? Who are we? Using that cycle, the plan, develop, implement, and assess. And you had a really great list of references and they were sprinkled throughout. So I think everybody will want to see some of those things as reference materials to help them going forward. And Tony transitioned really nicely, thank you, Tony, into something that was really well aligned with what Andrea was saying. How do we maintain those partnership relationships? And some of the things we came up with were listening effectively, following the person through the process to really understand where they might be getting stuck or where they might be struggling, sharing success stories. I always think that human service environments generally are pretty humble and sometimes don't exclaim loudly about all the cool, great things that they're doing. And so how do you share those great success stories? How do you have regular contacts and meetings with those partners so that you can keep them involved, as was just discussed? Building teams, having elevator pitches was one of the suggestions. What can you do to bring people together? And I love that quick three-part from Andrea, which was what's our organization, what do we do, and why should we care about this? Why is it important? Always those why statements. Why is this valuable? having ways to get your team together, town halls, as was shared as a suggestion, and internal communications, vehicles for bringing us together with a sense of purpose and mission. And that then translates back to what's external. If we have that internally and then we communicate effectively externally. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Matt, for the thorough summary. And thank you all again for joining today's ECHO session. This was a wonderful session. As a reminder to earn CME credits, please complete the post-session survey using the link in the chat. If you would like to present a case, please email cstat@uthesco.edu. We look forward to seeing you in our next session on Thursday, August 22nd. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.